I never thought silence could feel this loud. It's been 4 months since Evan walked out of my life, and yet, every night, I still hear the sound of our front door closing for the last time. Right now, I'm sitting cross-legged on the cold floor of my nearly empty apartment, no couch, no TV stand, just me and the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen. My phone is in my hand, glowing in the dark like it's mocking me. I swipe up. There he is. Evan. Hiking with his friends, a wide grin across his face, the sunlight hitting his hair in that way I used to love. In another post, he's sitting at a cafe with someone, a woman, leaning in to talk, smiling like the world is weightless. Meanwhile, I'm here, staring at the cracks in my walls and wondering how everything collapsed over one stupid comment. And before you roll your eyes, no, it wasn't cheating. It wasn't lying. It wasn't anything that obvious. It was a joke. At least, that's what I told myself when I said it. Just something light, playful, meant to make everyone laugh. And it worked, everyone laughed. Everyone except Evan. I thought one little joke couldn't ruin everything, until I lost the man who loved me more than anyone ever would. And before you think I'm exaggerating, let me tell you this, Evan wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my anchor. The kind of man who'd notice you were stressed and run you a bath without saying a word. The kind of man who'd sit in silence with you when you couldn't talk, just so you wouldn't feel alone. We were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. We had plans, trips, maybe a house, even whispered talks about kids someday. And yet, here I am, with nothing but the echo of that night replaying in my head, over and over, until it drowns out everything else. I'm not telling you this story to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you because I wish, God, I wish, someone had told me that love isn't just about romance and big gestures. It's about the small things, the words you choose, the moments you think don't matter. Because sometimes, the thing you think is harmless is the exact thing that breaks the person you love. So here it is, the whole story of how I managed to push away the best man I ever had, without even realizing I was doing it. I met Evan on a rainy Saturday in March, the kind where you'd rather be curled up in bed than anywhere else. But my best friend, Mia, had begged me to come to this charity fundraiser her company was hosting. There'll be free wine, she'd said. I figured, why not? I wasn't expecting anything, and certainly not him. Evan was standing awkwardly near the silent auction table, looking completely out of place in his slightly wrinkled button-up shirt. He wasn't the type who commanded the room. No loud voice, no big gestures. But when Mia introduced us, he smiled in this shy, almost hesitant way that made me curious. He wasn't my usual type. I'd always gone for the confident, center of attention kind of guys. The ones who made you feel like you had to keep up. But Evan was different. He asked me questions and actually listened. He didn't just wait for his turn to talk, he responded like my words mattered. We ended up sitting together most of the night, making sarcastic comments about the overpriced items people were bidding on. He made me laugh, not the polite, fake kind, but the kind where your cheeks hurt and you can't stop. Over the next few months, I learned that Evan was the kind of steady, reliable partner I didn't even know I needed. He'd show up with coffee when I had an early meeting. He'd cook dinner if I had a rough day at work. He'd leave notes in my bag, little reminders like, "You've got this." When I went through that awful stretch at work, the one where my boss seemed to have it out for me, Evan didn't just listen to me vent. He sat beside me night after night, helping me update my resume, reminding me I was worth more than that job. Our world wasn't just the two of us. We had a little circle, Mia and her fiancé, Tom, plus Evan's college buddy, Dylan. Game nights, dinners, random movie marathons, it felt like a second family. We teased each other, shared inside jokes, and leaned on one another when life got messy. There was just one thing, a small thing, or so I thought. Evan had this sensitivity about being compared to other men. I'd overheard him once telling Dylan that he hated feeling not masculine enough, like somehow he didn't measure up. I'd laughed it off in my head. I mean, Evan was strong in so many other ways. Why would it matter if he couldn't lift the heaviest box or fix a leaky sink? I never thought much of it at the time. If only I'd realized just how deep that insecurity ran, maybe I would have bitten my tongue the night it all came crashing down. It happened on a Friday night, the kind of night that starts out perfect, when you think nothing could possibly go wrong. We were at our favorite little Italian restaurant with Mia, Tom, and Dylan. The place was buzzing, the smell of garlic bread and fresh pasta hanging in the air, wine glasses clinking every few seconds. We just ordered another round when the conversation turned to moving day disasters. Tom was bragging about hauling an entire couch up 3 flights of stairs without help, and Dylan jumped in with some ridiculous story about carrying a fridge by himself. Then Mia smirked and said, "Well, I think Evan's more of the supervisor type." It was meant to be lighthearted, and I could have just laughed and moved on. But something in me, maybe the wine, maybe just my need to be the funny one, pushed me to add my own punchline. "Not exactly the strong guy in the group, huh?" I said, smirking at Evan. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Hey, I can hold my own." But I didn't stop there. I grinned, leaned back in my chair, and said, "Come on, man up, Evan. Don't be such a wimp." The table erupted in laughter. I basked in it, taking a sip of my drink like I'd just won some unspoken comedy contest. But when I looked back at Evan, he wasn't laughing. His smile was tight, his eyes fixed on the bread basket. The air shifted, just slightly, but I was too busy enjoying the attention to notice. The rest of the night, Evan was quieter. He laughed at a few jokes here and there, but mostly he just listened. I figured maybe he was tired. It wasn't until we got home that the tension finally broke. As soon as the door closed, he turned to me and said, "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" I blinked at him, caught off guard. "What?" "Evan, it was just a joke." He shook his head. "In front of everyone. You know how I feel about stuff like that. It felt like you were cutting me down. Making me small." I rolled my eyes, and that was my mistake. "You're too sensitive." Seriously, everyone was laughing. It wasn't that deep. His jaw tightened. "It was to me, Rachel." That was the first real fight we'd had in months. And looking back, I realize it wasn't just about that one comment. It was about every little time I'd brushed off his feelings, every time I'd chosen to get a laugh instead of having his back. But in that moment, all I cared about was being right, not realizing I was already losing him. The days after that fight felt different. At first, I told myself it was just a little tension. We'd cool off, talk it out, and things would go back to normal. That's how it always worked with us. But this time, the silence stayed. Evan stopped texting me good morning. He didn't call on his lunch breaks like he used to. When we were together, he was there, but not really. He'd sit beside me on the couch, scrolling through his phone, laughing at something I couldn't see. I'd try to start conversations, but they fizzled out before they even began. And date nights. They just stopped. I waited for him to suggest one, but he didn't. So I told myself maybe he needed space. I figured if I gave him room to breathe, he'd come back around. One Sunday, I went to brunch with Mia. Over mimosas, I casually brought up the fight. "Honestly, I think men are just too sensitive nowadays," I said, half laughing. Mia's smile faded. "Rachel, you know Evan's always been a little self-conscious about that stuff. You might have hit him harder than you think." I brushed it off. It was just one comment. He's not going to leave me over that. But as the days went by, I started to notice things. Small things that piled up like tiny warning signs I didn't want to read. When he stayed over, he stopped bringing his weekend bag, the one that used to be packed with extra clothes and his favorite coffee mug. Now he'd just show up with the bare minimum. His replies to my texts came slower, sometimes hours later, and when I'd ask what he was up to, the answers were short. Just busy. Out with friends. And then there was the smile, or rather, the absence of it. That easy, warm smile he used to give me when I walked into the room, it was gone. I told myself it was just a rough patch. That couples go through this and come out stronger. I clung to the belief that Evan wouldn't actually walk away over something so small. But looking back now, I realized the walking away had already started. It was a Wednesday evening, nothing special. I was home in sweatpants, hair in a messy bun, scrolling through takeout menus, waiting for Evan to come over. When he walked in, he wasn't carrying his usual weekend bag. No jacket draped over his arm. Just his keys in one hand and this strange stillness in his face. He sat down on the edge of the couch like he didn't plan on staying long. My stomach tightened. "Rachel," he started, his voice calm but heavy. "I'm moving out." I blinked at him, trying to process the words. "Moving out? You don't even live here full-time." He shook his head. "I mean, I'm ending this. Us." It felt like the air was sucked out of the room. "What? Evan, where is this coming from?" He looked me in the eye, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the hurt I'd been pretending wasn't there. "That night at dinner," he said slowly, "when you told me to man up in front of everyone, that wasn't just a joke to me. It was the last straw." I opened my mouth to argue, but he kept going. "I've spent years trying to show you who I am, Rachel. I've been there for you through everything, but I've also spent years feeling like you don't respect me. Like you think less of me because I'm not the loudest, strongest guy in the room. That's not true." He shook his head again. "It doesn't matter if it's true to you. It's how I've felt for a long time. And when you laughed about it afterward, it told me that my feelings don't matter to you." I reached for his hand, but he pulled back gently. "I'd rather be alone," he said quietly, "than with someone who thinks tearing me down is funny." I tried to apologize, to explain, to tell him I didn't mean it, but there was no yelling, no drama. Just a quiet, certain goodbye. And then, he was gone. For the next week, I replayed the conversation over and over in my head, torturing myself with all the things I should have said differently. Then Mia called. She hesitated before saying, "I think you should know. Evan was going to propose to you this month. He already bought the ring." I sat there in stunned silence, my mind flashing to every moment I'd taken him for granted, every time I'd chosen to be clever instead of kind. He had been ready to spend his life with me. And I'd made him feel like he wasn't enough. And now, there was no getting him back. It's strange how fast something can break. One moment you think you're unshakable, solid, and the next, it's just gone. 4 months. That's how long it's been since Evan walked away. And in that time, I've replayed every single moment we shared, trying to pinpoint the exact second I lost him. For so long, I told myself that love could survive little digs, teasing, and harmless jokes. That if the foundation was strong, words would just bounce off. I was wrong. What I thought were tiny, playful remarks were really small cuts, and I made them again and again until the wounds went too deep to heal. I've reached out to Evan. More times than I care to admit. Each time, he responds politely, even kindly, but there's a distance there. A wall I can't climb anymore. He'll ask how I'm doing, and I'll say, "Fine," but we both know it's a lie. He never lingers in the conversation. Never opens the door for more. And maybe that's what hurts the most, not the anger, but the absence. The quiet acceptance that whatever we had is over, and he's already moved forward. The proposal ring sits in a small box on my dresser. Mia gave it to me a month after he left, not because Evan wanted me to have it, but because she didn't want to keep it in her house, reminding her of what could have been. It's simple, elegant, exactly what I would have chosen for myself. And yet, when I look at it, it doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like proof. Proof that I was loved enough for someone to want forever with me, and careless enough to lose it. If I could go back to that night at the restaurant, I wouldn't just bite my tongue. I would take his hand under the table, smile at him, and say something that built him up instead of tearing him down. But life doesn't give you do-overs. Only lessons. So if you're lucky enough to have someone who loves you, don't make them the punchline. You might think you're just joking, until you're laughing alone. Tell me, have you ever lost someone over something you thought was small?